Well, thank you everyone for coming along today. It's with mixed emotions that I have decided that after 15 years representing the Greens in State Parliament, that it's time for me to retire and hand the baton over to my successor. And I'm delighted to be here today with not only my long-term colleague of 11 years, Tammy Franks, but also my successor, Robert Sims, who Greens members voted to both be our lead candidate at the next state election and also to fill any casual vacancy that might arise. So it's not really that surprising, I think, to people in the party, because I did flag that I reserve the right to go early. And I guess for the record, no one's pushed me, or there's no scandal looming. It really is something that I think is quite rare in politics, and that is sensible succession planning. I've had a wonderful 15 years in this job. I've enjoyed representing the people of South Australia, but if I was to have run for a third 8-year term, I would have been 70 by the end of it. And I don't think these jobs should be life tenure. I think people should do a reasonable term if they can, but then step aside for others. So I'm very excited that Rob Sims, who's a tad younger than me, one journalist kindly had him at 26, which he's owning that, he's grabbed hold of that. But Rob will be one of the rare people who will have had experience at local, state and federal parliament before the age of 40. There's certainly people who've got 2 levels of government under their belt, but Rob will have experience with all 3. And I think that's going to be good for South Australia. He'll hit the ground running. And my hope is that my resignation date, which will be in the week after Easter, has been timed to make sure that there'll be no lack of continuity of Greens membership in the Parliament. This week is the final sitting week for about a month, and I expect that when Parliament resumes on the 4th of May, that Rob will be sworn in then. So it will be a seamless transition. I just wanted to say a couple of things, because people, I mean, you can ask me later, but I'm preempting your questions, that people say, well, you know, what have you done? What have you achieved in 15 years? Well, I'll just mention a couple of things. And the first thing is a bit ephemeral, it's hard to put your finger on, but I was the first Green elected to State Parliament. And that means that we were pretty much an unknown quantity. People didn't know what these Greens were all about. So I set out that my first task was going to be to make sure that the Greens were regarded in the community as a normal part of politics, that we weren't scary, that we would engage in the process with the issues that are important to all South Australians. And I think that we've achieved that. I think that over the last 15 years, the Greens are now recognised as the third force. We're recognised as a progressive voice in Parliament. We're not scary, and I know that we're only going to go from strength to strength. The second thing I've mentioned, and again, it's often not realised, that South Australia's leadership in renewable energy was in large part due to the work that the Greens did all those years ago when we insisted that the rooftop solar be given a leg up by the government. The government wasn't proposing to give much of a leg up at all. In the end, they succumbed to Greens' pressure, and we got a 20-year feed-in tariff for those early adopters. And you've got to remember, these people paid a lot of money for relatively inefficient solar panels, but we knew that if we didn't give that industry a leg up, it wouldn't have even got started. And as it turns out, the rest, as they say, is history. We led the nation in rooftop solar, and we're still up there. And we don't need subsidies anymore. So I think that was an excellent policy initiative of the Greens. One other thing I'll just mention quickly is that we have been at the forefront of electoral reform. There's a couple of amendments, one to the Constitution, which ensured that politics was no longer just a 2-party game. There was some shocking provisions in there that made that rigged the system in favour of Liberal and Labor, and we've managed to fix that. And the other thing, of course, we've done is we have assured that when people vote, their preferences go where they want them to. We no longer have backroom preference deals, preference whisperers, where people can get a tiny proportion of the vote and get someone elected. The voters are now firmly back in control, and that's a proud part of the Greens' legacy. Rob.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Mark. And the first thing to say is an enormous thank you to Mark for the amazing job that he has done over the last 15 years as a state member of Parliament for the Greens. You know, reflecting on the story of our movement here in South Australia, the Greens began here in this state in Mark and Penny's lounge room as a movement, and it's a movement that's extended its reach into the National Parliament and the Senate, into this state parliament, and Mark has served our party with great distinction over the last 15 years. So thank you so much, Mark, for everything that you've done. For me, these are very big shoes to step into, and I'm going to be working really hard over the next 12 months before we get into the next election. It's a great honour to be able to join the State Parliament and to work with my long-term friend and colleague, Tammy Franks. Tammy and I have known each other for 20 years now. We've been good mates, and I'm really looking forward to working with Tammy as a colleague. And I think at the moment, the role of the Greens is vitally important. In fact, our party has never been more important. I watched some of the debate between Peter Malinauskas and Stephen Marshall the other day. They spent a lot of time talking about sports stadiums, but no time talking about homelessness. No time talking about the vulnerable South Australians that are going to be dealing with inadequate Newstart, and those people that are going to be losing those benefits from JobSeeker in the days and months ahead. We need to look out for vulnerable South Australians, and the Greens are a party that has the plans to do that. You know, we do have a crisis of homelessness. Walking around the city, I see people literally sleeping on the street when we have so many properties that are vacant. We've got to do something about that. And so those sorts of issues will be our focus over the next 12 months. And of course, ensuring that we provide leadership on the climate crisis that we know South Australia is uniquely exposed to. I do want to also make a few comments about my time on the City Council. I want to thank the residents and ratepayers in the City of Adelaide for giving me the opportunity to represent them. It's been a great honour to do so. Earlier this morning, I wrote to my council colleagues and advised them that I would be resigning from council so that I would be eligible to take up the position in the State Parliament. And I see this as being a continuation of the work that I've been doing in Town Hall, standing up for action on the climate crisis, standing up for action on inequality, and so I'll be representing the people of Adelaide as well as the people of South Australia more broadly in the Parliament when I step up in May. As I say, it's a great honour, and I'm really looking forward to getting started.
I'll keep it brief. It's been an absolute privilege to work with Mark and to learn from his experience, 15 years in this Parliament, the first elected Greens member in South Australian politics. He is a stalwart of our party. He's built our party and he's built our reputation in this place. The Greens have proved that we're a movement, we're not a moment. We are the third force in politics, and we were slow to start in South Australia because the Democrats had such a hold in here. But we know that this is a state that actually does vote for third parties, credible third parties, and the Greens will be that voice into the future. And we look forward to this next state election with a generational shift, knowing our time is here, knowing the green wave is on, and knowing that we need to grapple with not just a climate crisis but an inequality crisis, and the Greens are the only ones actually offering solutions to both.